Now with Reborn Ultimate Impact underway, this 5-part series focuses on the impact of Miles Morales bringing over the Maker's origin boxes from Earth 6160, which will introduce new heroes and, as we're told, shake up the Marvel Universe in a whole new way. And now that second part, not so sure about it, not holding my breath, but we'll see. So if you're enjoying these videos, be sure to drop a like, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and don't forget to hit that bell up top to get all notifications. Alright, so first thing, this continues what we covered in the 2025 Ultimate Spider-Man Incursion series, when we saw Miles travel to Earth 6160 after inadvertently accepting the Maker's invitation. And now a lot of things went down in this event, and I have the link to the full story in the description. But most notably in relation to what's happening now, is how at the time this led to Miles briefly teaming up with the Ultimates to go up against Emmanuel DaCosta, who had been using a number of the Maker's origin boxes for himself, which he was supposed to be using to create super soldiers. But Emmanuel didn't use all of them because I think that would have just killed him. So Miles took the remaining ones back to Earth 616 so the Avengers can handle it, since they take care of stuff like this all the time. But also, like we were told back when we covered this, there were multiple origin boxes or catalysts that Miles took with him back to Earth 616. But between Ultimate Spider-Man Incursion and Wolverine Weapons of Armageddon, where it's been shown to us like all of these catalysts were in the same box, Ultimate Reborn Impact changes this to show us that Miles brought back multiple boxes instead of one big box holding all the catalysts for the sake of the story. And we'll talk more about that as this continues. But before that, we head over to a place that's definitely a conversation starter, and that's the Negative Zone. Universe 6160, which I think is much closer to the end zone that we got with the original Ultimates universe in the early 2000s. But it's here where it's laid out for us that there's this forever battle going on between the cult of Annihilus and Blastar's children, where the leader of the cult of Annihilus, Hostilicus the Devastator, who previously defeated Mar-Vell and took his negabands, is fighting alongside of his warriors to restore the name of Annihilus to what it once was. So now with him possessing the negabands and learning how to use them, he's basically guaranteed victory against the children of Blastar. And the negabands grant him a crazy advantage because they allow the user to transfer mental energy into physical energy. At least that's what Mar-Vell's used to do, because there were other versions with different abilities that may or may not be mentioned down the line. But Hostilicus the Devastator is using the ones he took from Mar-Vell to end the forever battle once and for all. And we're shown this briefly as a way to let us know what's building up in the background, with Hostilicus being the big bad guy that's on the way. And after this, when we jump back to Miles on Earth 616, who set up a meetup with Tony Stark so he can bring him the origin boxes. But as it turns out, the meetup was set up for mad early, or as Miles would call it, an ungodly early meetup. So of course, with Miles being Spider-Man all night, he slept through his alarm and missed 5 calls from Tony Stark. So now Miles is in a rush to catch Tony and bring him these multiple origin boxes. Which again, like mentioned before, it's not just one big box with multiple catalysts, but instead multiple origin boxes. And we'll see in a little bit how that just works better for this story. Because when Miles rushes out to meet up with Tony, he leaves Tony a message like, hey, I definitely didn't sleep through my alarm clock and missed 5 of your calls. But he leaves Tony a message to let him know that he's on the way, only for his spider sense to go crazy just before he's attacked by Spot in transit. And now prior to this, the last time we talked about Spot, 616 Spot, was back when Carnage was collecting powers and just tore the guy to pieces, ending this man's whole career. Then about a year later, he came back just in time for the Across the Spider-Verse movie. But throughout this, we jump back and forth between a few new faces across a handful of different locations, starting in Jersey City with a guy named Vin Lerner. And for each of these people, we're just given a general idea of who they are, leading up to where all this is going. But in Vin's case, his daughter ends up showing him that he went viral after she recorded him helping this older lady cross the street. So she's just like, oh, Dad, you're internet famous, and everyone's calling you Wonder Man like some sort of superhero. And that's where Vin's just like, but Wonder Man is a superhero. Like somebody's already got that name. But he's not paying any of this much attention because Vin's got to get her ready for school and head to work. And right now with Miles fighting Spot, he has his suspicions as far as how random this encounter really is. Because aside from these origin boxes being from Earth 6160, Miles also encountered another Spot on Earth 6160 while he was there, and he briefly teamed up with Peter and Richard Parker. So now Miles is wondering if there's some sort of connection between the two, or if this is actually that same Spot. And Miles will get that answer in a little bit. But right now, Spot just tells him his current employer asked him to grab this for him, referring to the origin boxes. But next, we cut away again to Manhattan at Booth Media, where we're introduced to Paulina, who's editing a promotional video for the Donaldson campaign, when she then gets an email from her boss, Orson Booth, who tells her to remove any information about Donaldson's past behavior, which morally Paulina does not want to do, but eventually she ends up doing it because the bills gotta get paid. And this is done as a really quick way to show us the moral differences between Paulina and her boss Orson Booth, with both playing more substantial roles down the line. And now back over with Miles and Spot. Miles isn't about to let him just take these origin boxes without a fight, because he doesn't think Spot is really aware of how much power is in each of any of these. So he snatches back the web sack before Spot can dip off with him, only for Spot to pull that signature sneak up from behind because he's not a quitter. But around this time, when Miles tells Spot that he doesn't want to beat him up again, this has Spot like, wait, what you mean? Which lets Miles know that this isn't the one from Earth 6160. But also with having Spot confused here for a moment, this allows Miles to turn up the pressure and catch him with a Venom sting. But as they go back and forth, Miles is figuring out a little bit more here, with him now at least knowing which Spot he's dealing with. Then after this, we head over to Central Park where we're introduced to Max and Lola, who are up at this early hour looking at the moon and the stars, but really this is done in a way to show us the difference between the two of them, with Max being the kind of guy who often thinks about space, the universe, and infinity, and how vast they are, while Lola is more of an I'm thinking about what's right in front of me kind of person. And at one point, Max tells her about how he was reading all this stuff about the universe and all the things that happened out there, like other dimensions, and how that stuff kind of creeps him out. Which again, for Lola, who doesn't do too much of that far out thinking, because she's more interested in people and the world, and again, what's right in front of her. But to Max, he doesn't see the difference between the two, because as far out as some of these things may seem, like the moon or the stars or the sun, to him, these things are right in front of them as well. And over time with the two of them, we're going to see how their different perspectives really work like two sides of the same coin. And now also at this time, when we head to Lower Manhattan, this is where we see what's really going on with Orson Booth of Booth Media, who is Paulina's boss that was mentioned earlier. Because right now when we see him meeting with Claudia Burton, who is the New York financier and investor who made the request for them to remove information from their upcoming report in exchange for her potential investment. As time went on, she's been dragging her feet and pushing back their meetings, avoiding his calls. So Orson Booth just kind of popped up on her because he needs the money, but she just dismisses him here while telling him her potential investment was not guaranteed. And if he needs to speak to her, he needs to schedule an appointment. And as she walks away, Booth grabs her by the arm, which quickly leads to security getting involved. So Booth's like, oh, there's no problem. And he leaves on his own, but he tells Claudia that he'll be seeing her soon, which right there just sets up plenty of motive for Mr. Orson Booth. And back over with Miles, he's trying to explain to Spot how this is the worst time for a smash and grab. But Spot's not trying to hear that, so he hits the signature move once again, this time pulling Miles into his portal. So Miles tells him like, hey, there's power in this web sack that needs to be protected. It can't fall into the wrong hands. And it's like, to me, with Miles just telling him that, it has Spot like, okay, talk all you want, but my employer pays better. And I'm just thinking like everything Miles is saying is just gonna have Spot go back to his employer and ask for more. But with Spot doing this and taking the web sack, Miles is able to get a web on him and pull them both towards him, even with Miles describing that this dimension feels like he's swimming through a pool of honey. But even still, he's able to pull Spot in and hit him with his Venom sword, right in the face portal. Headshot. But this is where things start to get out of hand, starting with Miles noticing that he can't pull the Venom sword back out. So when he's like, I can't get it loose, what's happening? Owen is just like, I don't know. Some sort of reaction as the Venom sword overcharges him and Spot opens up a ton of portals, with the origin boxes just flying everywhere. And they both come back out soon after, just over the heads of Kevin and Jason, who've shown up a few times in some of our recent talks. But when Miles and Spot come back for a not so gentle landing, they both take a moment to kind of gather themselves. And it's not too long after when Miles realizes that the web sack is now empty and all the origin boxes are gone. Which now leads us into why we had those seemingly random introductions from earlier. Because now when we're shown where Spot's portals opened up to, we're immediately taken over to Ven, Paulina, Max and Lola, as well as Orson, with each of them having an origin box dropped right in front of them. So of course, every last one of these guys open them. And over time, we'll find out what exactly everyone has here, because I'm pretty sure this ends up turning Ven into the new Wonder Man, while Paulina, she's getting the ultimate Eye of Agamotto. Orson, I believe, gets the ultimate Crimson Gem of Sidorak. And with Max and Lola, their origin box contains two bands that also look like the Nega bands, so each of them put one on, because why not? And I could be wrong about every last one of these, because when this happens, we're not given any kind of description. We just see them each open the origin boxes and take whatever's inside, as a way to set us up for them all getting their new abilities as the story continues. And after this, when we go back to Hostilicus the Devastator, he's completely wrecked Blastar's children, and he's standing on like a mountain of their bodies. And he goes on to say here, victory for the true Lord God of the Negative Zone, victory for his followers, victory for the cult of Annihilus, which right there concludes chapter 1. And so now real quick, I want to give a special shout out to all the patrons. Thank you guys for all of your support. And for anyone who's new here who wants more information on how to support the channel, I got a link below where you can go to patreon.com/dopespill. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and we'll do it again on the next one. All right, later.